Hello everyone and welcome back to the Keep Productive YouTube channel. It is Francesco here. Today we're very lucky to be joined by Ian, the CEO of Evernote. Good to have you back, Ian. You all right?
Yep, I'm great. Nice to be here. Hope you're having a good new year.
Yeah, it is so far going all right. Yeah, I think so. Weather's a bit cold, but that's the same every year, isn't
It's
it?
well, it's gloomy and gray here, so I think
uh,
we've got that in common right now.
yeah, there we go. Yeah, it seems to be across the world now, doesn't it? I think the first thing that has changed since we last talked is I'm actually using Evernote again. Um, but one of the things that my community have been hounding me in comments is, am I being paid by you guys?
Well,
Can you confirm it's a no?
I can confirm it's a no.
It sounds
I'm trying
very
to think of
loose.
a joke to make here, but I can't find the right one.
There's
No,
not one, no.
afraid not. No, no checks being signed on a regular
No.
basis or one-off
Damn.
things with your name on them.
Yeah. Oh well. But you guys have been busy at Evernote. Obviously, we're going to be sort of putting this video out with the new feature. So maybe you can share what's new with Evernote in a bit more detail.
Sure, we're introducing a new feature to kick off the year in Evernote, and we're launching it on Mac and Windows and web first, and we'll follow with iOS and Android. And that feature is Home. We call it Home, and what it really is it's a new way to start your day in Evernote. It's a dashboard that gives you a sort of single view across all of your Evernote and gives you sort of easy and immediate access to all of the most important stuff you might want. We think of it in a lot of ways as a new view into your Evernote content, and it's a big step forward for us because not just because of what it does today at launch, but because of what it will let us do over time in the product. And that's something that's actually very important to us, and we believe eventually is going to be very important to all our users too.
Definitely. Yeah, we were chatting a bit before about how like there could be different widgets and things like this in the future. And I think,
Yeah,
is
well,
that more where you want to go?
I think the thing that motivated us to start this was that there's really three things that drove our interest in going down this path, and
Sure.
the first was that when you start Evernote, basically, we drop you into all your notes, and that's, I guess, an okay place to start. But we fundamentally believe that we could do better than that. That maybe there was something better than just, well, here's all your notes as a starting point for Evernote, and that was one motivation that we had probably over a year ago as we started to think about it. A second was we noticed that some of our power users were going to a lot of effort to create these sort of jump off pages that they used as their sort of note from which they could get to all other notes, if you want to think about it that way, in Evernote. And they called them dashboards and things like this. And we saw some of these, and then we actually ran a contest about a year ago in our forums and in the community to say, hey, show us your dashboards. We'd be curious to see, what they look like, and you'll give an award for best dashboard. And that was actually a way for us to do some research and see, well, what are people actually doing with these things? And that was really a second motivator, was seeing what our power users were doing and wondering if we could bring some of that value to the bulk of our users who won't actually go to all that work necessarily that a power user would go to set up, that complex a note. And the third thing that motivated us was really Stepan's original vision. And if you talk to Stepan, he'll say that his vision for Evernote was to be an extension of your brain. And if you get into conversation with him, one of the examples he likes to use is, if Evernote is really an extension of your brain, and you were in an airport and you opened Evernote, it would show you what you needed without your having to actually kind of look for it. It would, it would know, well, you're in an airport, so here's your travel itinerary, here are your tickets, here's your frequent flyer numbers, and it would just show you what you needed, because it would know enough to be able to do that. And we think about that, from a vision standpoint, is ultimately, wouldn't it be great if when you opened Evernote, it showed you what you needed without you ever needing to ask for it? Now, that's a big, long, goal, and a big vision, and it's not clear exactly how you would get there in the end. But what's clear is if we are going to start to become more helpful, and actually start to surface things for the user that they might be interested in, then we need a place to do that. And we don't actually have that place inside Evernote anywhere before today. Like, there is no place for us to say, here's the stuff you might want to look at right now. Here's the stuff that is most relevant. We have the left nav, obviously, on the large screen devices, but that's really set up based on the way you've organized your content. At any given point in time, it's not actually about your master organization, it's about what you need right now. And so that's the third motivator is, well, where can we have a place that over time we can start to surface the content that we think is most relevant to you right now? And you put those three things together and you end up with an idea like Home, something that is incredibly valuable today because it gives you this new way to start your day and a place to look at all your content in a single view. But it also gives us a new place to start to iterate and innovate from, and to start to be able to surface content and new kinds of content in the future as we expand Evernote and Evernote's capabilities. And you can see the very starting points of some of that, for instance, in the Notes widget, where it will, show you your most recent notes, but there's also a thing you can click on that is, what are suggested notes? And suggested notes are the beginnings of, hey, we think these things might be relevant to you at the moment, based on what we know about your usage pattern and the things you access most frequently, not just the things you access most recently, and things like that. And over time, that capability will get more and more powerful and more capable, and it will deliver on our ability, to be more helpful. We really have this sort of spectrum of users that goes all the way from, people who are just starting to use Evernote to people who use Evernote on a regular basis, but they're not, really connected to a disciplined organization system, all the way up to power users who have incredibly disciplined uses and workflows inside Evernote. And what we're trying to do with Home is really start to help the bulk of those users in the middle who maybe could use a little bit of help getting into their Evernote every day, because their organization system maybe isn't quite as disciplined and maybe isn't quite as fantastic as the power users who spend a lot of time maintaining the content in their Evernote. Over time, we fully expect to actually be able to have Home really serve all of those kinds of users. And there are ways that we already know that we can extend some of the widgets that we have to make them even more interesting and more powerful for our power users. And there are things we can do to start to use some of those widgets to introduce capabilities to new users who may not even know that Evernote can do some of those things. So, we sort of look at it a little bit as a mission over time to fill out Home, both in terms of how it adapts to our different kinds of users, but also in terms of all the different parts and corners and spaces inside Evernote that might be relevant.
Yeah, I like that it can be like Evernote's front page, which is quite cool. The thing that I never really thought about was that contextual use, if I'm honest. When I first saw it, I thought, this is a neat idea because you've got everything sort of laid out in front of you. It's almost like, I like the concept of dashboards for like being able to land on something and start your day there. But I never really thought about it for contextual use. How would you see that working in the future? Like, have you started on that sort of vision yet? Because one of the things I'm curious about is more like, is it like machine learning and AI that you're sort of looking to bring in to help that along?
Lots of people like to throw around the term AI because it
Yeah, I know,
sounds
like
spiffy
me.
and cool. I think we've all experienced no shortage of AI systems that attempt to be helpful and just get it wrong all the time.
Yeah.
So that's not number one on the hit
Hmm.
parade right now. I think there's a lot of very basic stuff that we can do
Hmm.
that is a lot more straight line of sight in terms
Yeah.
of surfacing things that are more relevant based on relevancy algorithms that have sort of been well understood in the search world and
Yeah.
well tested in the search world for decades at this point,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
actually use that kind of approach as opposed to assuming we can throw all this stuff into an AI box, turn it all around and magic happens.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely not where we're starting. I think we'll iterate over a long time and see if
That's
we
good.
can continue to make sure that the things that we're suggesting are the right things,
Hmm.
and to keep tuning those algorithms to actually generate utility.
Yeah.
But it's there are some fairly straightforward things we can do to really take advantage of the things that Evernote already knows. I mean, for
Hmm.
most people, because of the way Stepan originally conceived of Evernote, we Evernote knows when a note was created, and it knows where the note was created.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that Stepan believes that basically if you take time and space, you have a unique descriptor,
Yeah.
because you as a human can only be doing one thing in one time in one place, and so he sort of viewed that as this absolutely precise descriptor of where you were and what you were doing at this point in time. And we don't actually do as much as we could to take advantage of that, to sort
Hmm.
of say, oh, okay, just simply
Hmm.
based on the knowledge of where a note was created, can we factor that in to suggestions based on where you are right now?
Sure.
And those are things which are straightforward for us to do, that we haven't even started to experiment with yet to see how effective they are.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really where we're going to start. And some of it will be us, trying to be proactively helpful, and some of it will be us providing, users with more powerful ways to configure help
Sure.
so that it can be even more helpful to them. Because
Yeah.
what we're really trying to do is, help. I think the way to think about it is, for that sort of middle group of users that isn't like completely disciplined on a day-to-day basis in their usage of Evernote, but it has a lot of powerful content in there. We want to be as helpful as we can. And for
Yeah.
those power users who have really organized everything, exactly the way they want it, and they're super disciplined and they stick to their systems, we want Home to be able to help them help themselves,
Yeah.
by being able to configure and set it up exactly the right way they want. And
Yeah.
both of those are futures, right? Home
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
start. This is like V1, but
Yeah.
that's from a future standpoint. That's
That
really
makes
what we're
sense.
trying to do.
Brilliant. And I think last time you referred to these as, I don't want to get it wrong, but boulders, right? These are the boulders you're talking
Yes,
about.
this is the first,
The boulder
the
one.
first boulder. This is boulder one.
I think
Um,
you know what I'm going to ask next.
are there more boulders? Yes,
And
there
there are
are
more
more
boulders. Yeah,
boulders.
that's good.
Yes, there are more boulders. So happy to confirm that. Uh, and the reason that this is boulder one is twofold.
Hmm.
One, it also creates. Well, the first one actually is because Home is a completely new interface to Evernote, a completely new surface. It a little bit is like almost off to the side of the entire
Yeah.
Evernote. There's like, oh, now off to the side, there's a whole new view. because of that, we were able to start working on it and thinking it through earlier than some other things which have to be more tightly integrated into the guts of Evernote. So we're actually able to start working on Home earlier, to start software development earlier, and to do more of it in parallel with the new client work that was being done last year. And so we're starting to reap some of the benefit of being able to work on that stuff in parallel. So that's one reason it's coming out first. But the other reason it's coming out first is that some of the features that will come out in the future will also take advantage and fit naturally into Home as a display surface. And by that, I don't mean that they are, that the feature is a widget, but I mean that being able to put a widget for that feature in Home will not only make that feature make more sense, it'll also make Home make more sense. So these boulders are going to start adding together and multiplying off each other. And Home is like a bit of a foundation for some of that work that is coming ahead.
Oh, very interesting. I like that. So there's going to be a nice wall in a year's time emerging. That's exciting. I guess one final thing to wrap up, because you sort of shared a bit more like the future side of stuff. There's I'm reading at the moment the how to take smart notes, and also like looking at these concepts like Zettelkasten and Slipbox and things like that. It's really interesting. Like I'm a bit of a newbie to it, but it's sort of like sprung up on a lot of the personal knowledge management space. Is Evernote like actively looking at that and going, this is something that we can like take advantage of, if you know what I mean?
I think the way to think about this from our standpoint is, because of the size of our audience and the size of our user base, we're always sitting there kind of saying, is this something that works for the 90%, for the 50%, for the 10%, or for the 1%? And all I'm going to say is one of the things that's super powerful about Evernote is that you can make it your own. And you can use the flexibility that Evernote has, which is, in some ways a barrier to adoption. It is such a Swiss Army knife that it's a little bit overwhelming for a new user when they first show up. And if it just did one thing simply, that would be much easier for a new user, but much less useful, because you can't actually make it what you want over time. And so one of the things that we are thinking about is, how do we help people get from that first state where I'm just starting with Evernote to that world where so many of our users are, where they live their life in and through Evernote, but they don't live it based on the way we said they should live it. They live it based on the systems that they have chosen to adopt inside Evernote. And that's a journey for people, going from that day one to, whatever that end state is, and whatever system they happen to be using, and whatever tools they happen to be using to get there. And I don't think we believe that there is the one system that rules them all, or the one set of tools that rules them all. But one of the things that we are looking at is, how can we make it easier if a user knows what kind of sets of tools they'd like to adopt, and what kind of system they'd like to move towards. How can we make that easier inside Evernote to get you from point A to point B? So again, we help you get there and we provide more support. Right now, that's entirely all on the user, and whatever outside guidance that they get. We are starting to think about, how do we bring some of that into the system and through the system over time. It's not going to be there anytime soon, but it's definitely something that we're thinking about. And I think in that mode, that gives us room to start to envelop some of these new things that are coming up, and make them available to the people who are excited about using them without forcing them on everybody else who doesn't want them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I always go away from these calls like pondering things and going into deeper thought. So you always leave me with some gems. Thanks, Ian, for diving into Home, and hopefully we can have another call in a couple of months when there's a new boulder or a
I
pebble,
think
maybe.
I'm pretty confident we can move beyond hopefully and say, yeah, I'm pretty confident we're going to be having another one of those calls.
Lovely, jubbly. Is everything okay with you, your side, Dave? How's
Yeah,
work? How's
everything
Evernote?
is fine. Evernote is doing well. I think the holidays were good for everybody.
Oh, that's great.
And we're all back at it, and we are tremendously excited about what's coming in 2021.
Yeah,
Home sort of snuck out a little bit and poked its nose out into the world in
yeah,
December by mistake. It was a little oops moment there.
yeah,
And we saw the reaction that people had to this thing that was there for a moment and then went away.
yeah.
And all I can say is, Home is super exciting. But what's coming next is bigger than Home. So
Oh, blimey.
this is it's going to be a lot of fun the first half of this year for sure.
Oh, brilliant.
It's going to be a good time to be an Evernote user.
Yeah, it's making up for all that's happening in the world right now. Thanks, Ian. And we'll catch up soon. Yeah.
All right, take care.
Lovely, jubbly. You too.